I want to thank our sponsor, Planet Ford. Planet Ford has always been a proud supporter of law enforcement in the community, providing customer service and fleet management, sales, and service. If you're looking for that personal quality service, contact Planet Ford in Spring or online at planetford.com. You're listening to Crime Scene Today, where we talk about current issues facing law enforcement, forensics, and crime scene investigation. I'm your host, Dan Zintek. Joining me today, I have Ashley Church and Erin West, co-founders of Gap Science. And we're going to talk about some of the things that they found important and have brought to sort of their attention they felt needed to be addressed in the crime scene world. So Erin, Ashley, thank you for coming on, joining us today. A little bit of background. So Erin, you recently were promoted. What are you currently doing? You got a promotion, so what are you now doing?
Yes, I did get a promotion about a month ago. It's been a little hairy while I've been, accommodating to my new role, but I was promoted to the crime scene manager at the Osceola County Sheriff's Office down here in Kissimmee, Florida. So I am over our forensic unit, which is our crime scene investigators and our DNA pre-screening lab, over our latent print unit and our fingerprint services. So that's what I'm doing now.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And Ashley, you have a past in this too, so tell us your role in crime scene.
I do. So Erin and I met, we worked for the same department, and I was at the time the supervisor over the crime scene unit and the pre-screening DNA lab, and she was supervisor over the latent print unit. And prior to that, I just worked as a crime scene technician. I loved field training officer work. So I did train, I think, probably about 12 people while I was there. And now I dove full time into our company, Gap Science. So that's what we do. We train forensics professionals across the nation. So,
and you brought up a point of something that sort of drew my attention, and we're going to talk as far as accreditation and different things like that. But, y'all talk about field training, and it seems to be that a lot of field training is focused at the patrol level, right? We know when they get out of the academy, we really need to give them some more education before they hit the streets, right? And then after they move to a supervisor, maybe there's one course, right? It's like 40 hours, 24 hours, here's how to quote supervise. That's really it. But if you go into specialized area, homicide, crime scene, there's things related to your job, right? You're going to get sent to a blood stain, you're going to get shooting construction, but there's a lacking. And I guess there's training by, you usually get assigned to a partner and follow them around and do what they do, right? But
if you're lucky.
If you're lucky. If otherwise, hey, here's the lab and here's the keys, and don't drink the chemicals or something. I don't know, but so. But then it also goes to that supervisor role, and what I found across the board, I don't care if it's patrol, homicide, CSI, that I find it very rare that when someone promotes that your lieutenant or sergeant, whoever it is, sits down with you and says, hey, this is what I expect you to do. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll tell you an experience I had when I promoted once. I had that. I was like, okay, here I am. And obviously we all know as much as you may look up to your sergeant or your lieutenant or whatever, just because they got that badge, they had no more clue as to what to do that day that they got promoted. And so you walk in and say, okay, what do you want me to do? Okay, what's expected of me or whatever. Yep. My answer that I received the first time was, we'll just wing it.
Yeah.
Okay. And
supervisors are winging it across the nation.
Yeah. So and it's not like their fault, if they don't get the opportunity to receive training. How can we really hold them accountable for stuff that they don't know? But going back to the very beginning of what you were saying was, as technicians or detectives, like you receive so much training on how to do your job, right? And then once you get promoted into any type of leadership role, it's just, it's like an innate ability to be able to train someone and effectively teach them. It's an innate ability to be able to budget $1 million crime scene lab and keep up with supplies and ordering. And it's an innate ability to be able to write an effective evaluation and have good communication skills. So definitely that's what Erin and I struggled with so much was, how do we do these things? Because we were just winging it. And we did receive some training, right, Erin? But it was either very generalized or it was geared towards sworn personnel, and we were civilians.
Or it's situational. It's what do I need to know? Well, I'll let you know when that thing happens, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And when it happens, then you come in and you get some direction on that thing. But you're right. There's nothing that just because you got the promotion, you got the badge or stripes or whatever happened. No, you didn't all of a sudden go to sleep and get this knowledge. And I think the most disappointing thing is when you're at the lower level, like when you're at the deputy or the investigator level, and you're looking up to your sergeant, and then you become that sergeant, and you're like, I don't know any more than I knew yesterday. I mean, there's nothing special about this, right?
Most supervisors, we found most supervisors are kind of fumbling through it too. Like Ashley said, I've been promoted several times throughout my career at different agencies, and every time I was promoted, I was just dropped in, and then it was just a sink or swim situation. So, that's really where Gap Science came about, because we were really like, we have to do better, and not only all the things she was talking about, all of the providing feedback and communication and all of those things that we have to learn, those skills. On top of that, forensic supervisors are required to do all these extra forensic specific skill sets, like auditing and, auditing casework and all of that.
Right, your peer review and stuff.
Right. And technical reviews and administrative reviews and all of that stuff. And a lot of times when you're promoted over the forensic units, you don't have a person in your chain that you can go to and be like, I have a forensic specific question I need answered.
Right.
You might have a leadership mentor if you have a good supervisor that you can go to and be like, hey, I have this personality conflict or something like that. How do I resolve that? But you can't get all those forensic questions answered. Like, how do I go about getting my lab accredited? Your captain's like, I have no idea. So
just get it done. Let's just make that happen.
And on a side note with that, so you get promoted and you only know what you know, which is the skill set that you had as a technician or detective, right? So what we see a lot of times is people get promoted because of their seniority or because they were really good at the technician level. But we don't promote based off of leadership skills. Just because you're a great technician does not mean that you're an effective supervisor. And just because you're not the best technician doesn't mean you can't be a great supervisor. So what we see a lot of times when you get promoted and you don't know how to be a supervisor, you just fall back on what you know. And that's how supervisors they can't let the old job go. You'll see them still put themselves on the on-call schedule. You'll still see them taking casework. And it's like, there's so much more that you can be doing to make your unit better and push your unit forward and, motivate your personnel. Like, you have to let that casework go.
Well, and I think it starts falling to, and, something a lot of people don't consider when they start seeing micromanaging. Many times it's not so much of this control factor that they want to have, it's this comfort factor. They know that job, right? They know because they came from that and they know what they were doing, and they can talk about that all day long, but where they have trouble is actually doing the current job they've been given. And as y'all point out, it's not for a lack of want. I mean, it's those conversations where you walk in going, what is expected of me? Where's my list? Like, what's my to-do list, or where's my policy? I mean, because there's a policy on how the lab works, but where's the layout on what the sergeant does, or where's the layout on what's expected of this? And as you said, it's very rare to find that.
Yeah. And it's like a trial by fire. Like the only way I learned what I was supposed to be doing was they're like, hey, you screwed up. Why didn't you do this thing? Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to. I guess I'll do it from now on. Like that's how you learn in that type of position, which doesn't feel very good, right?
No, and
if you had a list, it would be much better.
Well, and the underlying factor, I mean, we talk about a business because it is, and we talk about our jobs related to management and leadership because it is. But the underlying foundation, when we fail at our jobs or something drops through, okay, we're talking about our citizens, possibly a sexual assault victim, a murder victim, a family. I mean, these are the end result of us not managing and doing things proper, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it's not a bottom line of finance. It's not, hey, the product went down. I mean, and those things.
There's
I mean,
so many stories of that right now too. Of just all kinds of craziness going on in forensics, where there was just a lack of supervision or anything like that. And you had brought up earlier about officers going through FTO programs, and obviously that's something we cover in Gap Science too, because we feel like it's very structured for officers. Like everybody knows that an officer is going to run through this structured training program, and everybody's well aware of the liabilities of cutting that training program. But then forensic training programs, often there isn't one at all, or, they do get cut. They're trying to push personnel through quickly without really thinking about the ramifications of doing that are the same as cutting an officer's FTO program short. But then on top of that, to be putting people in supervisory roles and also not providing them any kind of training or structured training program so they can be successful at their job too, is also really can be a liability for agencies as well.
Well, and the supervisor programs that you come across are geared towards patrol, right?
Yes.
I mean, you can find how to be a supervisor, and they're going to talk. I mean, some of the stuff's basic. I mean, you'll have your DISC assessments and personality assessments and whatever, and it's like, hey, these people, should work together, and these are part of your team, and understanding, and yeah, that's across the board. But a lot of them really focus on that whole patrol side of things versus a difference of what's happening in the lab.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem too is like we don't get treated like a high liability unit. I know Erin and I have come across through several of our trainings where the perspective is like, oh, you just collect evidence. Like, what bad stuff can you really do? What things can you really screw up? And it's like actually a whole lot. Like there was a perspective, like the worst thing that we can do since we're a civilian unit is to accept free coffee. Like we literally got told that, and it's like there's an entire Netflix series on about what is it called, Erin?
How to fix a drug scandal.
Yeah.
So what is this? What's it called?
Oh, you should
called
watch
How to Fix a Drug Scandal.
How to Fix a Drug Scandal. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I have not seen that one. I've seen a bunch of the Netflix series, but
it's excellent and shocking.
It's excellent and very shocking.
The whole course. I mean, the ethics portion of that course, when it was a sworn officer that was teaching, and they were used to teaching law enforcement, and they had civilians in that class, civilian forensic supervisors, and he wasn't really familiar with forensics, so he couldn't think up a lot of ideas of things people could do in a forensic unit that would be unethical. So he kept using the example of like getting free coffee. If you get free coffee, that's unethical. But that was the only
that was the best thing he had, right?
Yeah.
That was the only thing he could think of that a forensic unit could do that could be unethical. So
and you talk about the liability, and certainly there is in a lab. I'll tell you a place that I find that it is really not looked at and really, I guess, downplayed is our property rooms.
Absolutely.
I mean, the understanding of the liability that exists in that property room of managing evidence, making sure it's secure and the chain of custody, and that it's, packaged properly and not dripping on this and that, and releasing it to people that don't need to be, and securing it for the DAs. And, yeah, I think that's overlooked, and many times,
Very
at least
much
in our
so.
area, that's nearly all civilian.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And we found too, through our teaching, that a lot of agencies are lumping these units together because they just think like, oh, crime scene and latent prints
It's
and
like the
evidence, they're
same.
all kind of the same
Right.
thing. So we're just going to squish them together. And then, two people are going to do all three things or things like that. Like we'll teach a class and, students will be like, I do crime scene and latent prints and property, and I run the agency drone, and I do, digital forensics.
And open record
And
request, yes.
yeah, we're like, that's way too much. It's way too much. Like all of these areas are very specific, very dangerous areas if you don't have people that are managing them effectively, working in them properly. They all have a lot of details, a lot of rules and regulations that go with each individual area. So when you have, one person that's doing like tons and tons of different high liability jobs that are really like completely separate, distinct areas, it can be, it
You're
can
sitting
get a
back
little
figuring out which
hairy.
one they're going to drop, right?
Exactly.
I mean, one of those, you give so much to somebody, they're either not going to be effective in all of them. You set them
Yes.
up to fail in something, and
Yes.
it's how bad's it going to be? That's
Exactly.
sort of what
And
you're waiting for.
a lot of times, like she said, there's just one person that does everything, and there's no one else in the agency that knows what they do. So how do you know they're doing their job properly if no one else knows what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
Well,
Just
and
hope for
it's
the best.
and again, when you don't think there's a liability, when you don't understand what they're responsible for, it usually reflects in their pay and in the budget and in their training. I
Yeah.
know when I started at a particular agency that had that, and it was not that long ago, so we're not talking inflation type things. Not long ago, they were making right at $19,000 or $20,000 a year,
Ooh.
and they were over the evidence. Okay,
Wow.
it's like, I mean, sort of get what you pay for type thing. I mean,
Absolutely.
who's going to show up to apply for that job? Who's going to take that job? And then, yeah,
Or take
they're,
it seriously.
and,
know?
and they're over your capital murders and, these things that have to be, in our state kept forever. I'm sure same as y'all's, that this stuff can never go away and
Yeah.
whatnot. So, yeah, I think the lack of understanding sometimes creates numerous issues along the way. And you're right. I've certainly seen when I've taught before, the people that show up for whether it's detective, crime scene, or photography, those type of things. There's so many roles that they have. I mean, for one, they're pulling up in their patrol car, because they take calls, and then they got their crime scene stuff in the trunk, and they're also, they got to get back to the station to release the property, which on a check and balance system is sort of an issue to begin with, right? Okay, you're the one collecting it, you're the one processing it, and you're the one who's saying, no, I did all those things.
Yeah.
Right, and it's no, it's in the back. It's under K, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's very common. I mean, it's really very common. The more classes we've taught, the more we see that there are a lot of agencies that have, one or two people that are doing tons of different things. And a lot of times when those people come to our courses and they tell us that, they're very proud of the fact that they are doing like 5 or 6 different like full-time forensic duties. And the truth is, like you said earlier, is you'll know a little bit of everything, but you won't do anything very well because you're not really dedicating to learning that particular craft very well. So, and I'm
You
sure,
can't. Like that's a
Yeah,
lot
you
of
can't. Yeah.
training and knowledge and expertise for all of those different things. There's no physical way that you can dedicate yourself to learning all of those crafts.
Yeah.
well, and one of the things that y'all talked about is obviously when you give all those tasks is the burnout, right? You're going to overwhelm them,
Yeah.
and as Ashley and I were talking a little bit before the show, as far as the cost of training somebody. I mean, when you're
Yes.
training those specialized units, it's over the course of their short career can add up to $30,000, $100,000, depending on what they're getting into,
Yep.
And then they're going to leave, and you have a new person
Yep.
coming in that you're going to have to pay the same amount for, right?
Yep. And then you're reinvesting all of your time and energy to get another new person through, and then they get overwhelmed with a ton of work, and then they leave, and the door just keeps, the revolving door just keeps going. So
The people that do stay, have to deal with having a short staff, so they're getting burnt out too, right?
Right. Well, and also that goes back to your FTO part is, so when you have that person leave, the brand new person cannot come in, kick down the door and go, all right, I'm ready to go on call. Y'all take a break. Right.
Which is what some agencies actually do. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do on a crime scene when you've never been on a crime scene? I mean, it's, you just,
Yeah.
I mean, you basically say,
Yes.
anybody got a camera? I got a bunch of yellow tape back here. I mean, we're going to figure it out. I can't
We're gonna
even wrap
win.
my head around how I guess you just do it, but I don't.
Yeah.
Obviously,
The more
you
that
do it
we've done these
ineffectively.
trainings- Yeah, the more that we've done these trainings, I feel for those agencies because you can tell based off of the students' expression, like it's a problem, right? Not having a training program, not having a well-developed training program. Some agencies don't have any training programs at all. Some of them just do like a job shadow for a few months and then sign off. Okay, you're good to go. So that is a huge issue that we've come across.
Well, we've seen that across the
Yes.
board in FTO is people just, when are they going to be released? When are they going to be released?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
The pressure's on, right?
Right. Are they
And
done?
that really comes down to the supervisor. The
Oh, it does.
supervisor has to be able to tell the command staff their training program is however long it is, and that's how long it is, and sometimes supervisors feel that pressure, so they force people out. But our job as a supervisor is to filter some of that stuff from our people. So they shouldn't even know that anybody's asking, like, how much longer till they're done, so that they have the time to finish the training program and, all the time they need to be trained well. So they can go out there and jump right in. And they do, if they're trained well and you take the time and you don't rush them, they dive right in and they help the unit instead of hindering the unit. When we rush them out too fast just so we have a body on call, then it becomes an anchor for the unit because you constantly have to help that person because they didn't get the training they needed to do the job well.
Yeah.
So,
And I know Erin uses this analogy all the time where if you go back to the command staff and you're like, well, how about we cut this phase of a sworn officer's training program? They'd be like, oh my gosh, no, like there's so many issues with that and so much liability. It's like, it's the same thing for any type of forensic unit too. Like if you cut a portion of the training program that the trainee needs in order to do the job function, when they get out, they're not going to be very good at it.
yeah.
Right. And across the board, any training program, when it's pushed, and I've seen it sadly throughout my career, you see a person who has a problem, and you don't see it till they're halfway through, or you don't see it till the end, right? And it's a problem that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And in reality, they need to go, right? I mean, there's certain people that don't need to be CSIs, and there's certain ones that don't need. No matter if their heart and long desire has been to do this, they just don't need to be the one doing that. They're not equipped for it, but they're nearly done.
Get on the right bus.
Right.
This isn't their bus.
but they're nearly done, right? We've already spent 9 weeks on them. We've already spent 10 weeks on them. You didn't see this earlier, right? We just
not gonna be worth it.
Just sign off, and we need to get somebody out there. We'll figure it out later. And those are the people who we're addressing problems the next year and the next year, and having to address, and it's so much easier. For one, I think besides doing a disservice to the department, doing a disservice to your citizen, you're doing a disservice to them.
Absolutely. Who wants to show up to work and feel like they're failing every day? I know I wouldn't. I feel like it's the kinder thing to do is to let them go and fill it with someone that is going to be more effective, and your team is going to appreciate that so much better.
Yeah. And we're actually really huge advocates of too. And obviously this depends on your agency, but if you have an open position and you do an interview board and your candidate list is not a good list, you don't choose from that list. Just leave the spot open and do it again. And that's really painful for a lot of agencies. And they'll just pick someone out of that group so they can fill the spot. But it's going to hurt the team in the long run to put someone that's a bad fit in one of those spots just so you have a body in a spot. It's better to wait and find a good candidate for those positions.
Right, it all boils down to, are you looking for a CSI or a body, right? Because we can get one of those pretty easy, but it's not going to do the job, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen that. You throw the letter out, and I've seen the other side where it's narrowing it down so much to any type of person to apply that you make it where just the one or two are able to be there, and you're missing out on some other people,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've definitely had to, we have had to really think outside of the box to get our positions filled. Now, crime scene, I feel like when you post crime scene positions, like everyone and their mother applies for them. Tons of people apply. For us, for our latent positions, we'll post latent positions and we'll get like no applicants.
Yeah, no one wants to do that. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no applicants. So we really had to think outside the box. Like there are not trained examiners just floating around out there waiting for a job to come open. Like everybody's employed, nobody's looking. So every time we post, it's open for forever. But we've had, inside our agency, we have people throughout the department that have come into another unit waiting for a position to come open in forensics. And then a position will come open in latents and command staff will be like, oh, so-and-so has a degree in forensics. And you have to be like, hold on. A degree in forensics does not mean you will enjoy latent forensics. You can't just pick somebody up and stick them in that unit and hope they'll be successful, So, but that's that knee jerk, like we have a hole, we need to put a body there kind of thing, just moving someone over without really seeing if it's a good fit.
Right, possibly better line art or fine art degree, something that likes to just stare at black and white things all day long and compare them.
Exactly.
The other thing we face is, and I know that we saw this a lot in homicide as well as crime scene, there are many people that apply to do it to have the title. Right.
Absolutely.
That's
cool, right?
Right. They want to be the homicide detective. They want to be the CSI. They don't want to do the job.
Yeah.
They just want to have the title. And I remember we had one test for homicide, and during the deal, he basically said that he didn't like dead bodies. I'm like, what? This is going to be an issue. Okay. You may be great at interviewing and all the other aspects of what we're doing, but there's going to be a time that you will see a dead body in homicide. So, and those, I definitely think that it's a passion. It's a passionate position that you really, and you can tell. You know the people on the team that they're, you got to tell them to go home at times because they're so involved in what they're doing, versus the ones that are mad every time the phone goes off because they're going to the next call or whatever. And they sort of weed themselves out just because they move on, but how much time and money has been wasted along the process.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Y'all gotten to teach many agencies with some of these things you've seen. So what has been sort of the things that stand out that seem to be a general need to be improved on?
Well, what you already pointed out definitely is burnout. And I think we have a course called Forensic Supervision, and it's kind of enlightening for a lot of people, like, oh, I'm the one that should be modeling like good behavior in order to avoid burnout. But us as supervisors, we kind of forget or don't realize how much our staff is paying attention to our own behaviors. It's not enough to say like, you verbally say like, hey, take care of yourself, go home at the end of the day, take a break when you need it. But what is your supervisor modeling? Are they going home at the end of their shift? Are they coming early and staying late? Are they taking their work home with them? Are they eating their lunch at their desk? Like if we want to try to mitigate burnout for the job, like it starts with us, right? So that's definitely something that, I think everyone across the nation kind of feels. I think if you're at a really big agency, at least for crime scene investigators, I felt burnt out around the 3-year mark and like fried by the 5-year mark.
One thing that I know we've done in crimes against children, it's just sort of a mental thing, is for the most part, it's usually a max of 3 to 5 years, and you don't have a choice. Like, you're out.
Yes.
Okay.
I like it.
But
I do too. And when we present that idea, people are like, "Oh my gosh, I have to go do something else." It's like, yeah, but it's a healthy thing. Like, it's healthy for everyone.
and I don't think it's for everyone, and I think that's sometimes the issue. I think majority. I think it is. I think like where it is right now, there's only so long that you should probably just hearing and watching, especially in the video and photo world that we have of children under the age of 10 being raped. Okay.
Right.
That for anybody, right? Even NCMEC rotates their people every 3 years that's steadily looking at child porn all day. It's an understanding going into that you're going to invest so much money every 3 to 5 years. Like, that, just make it part of your budget because this is going to happen, right? But then there's the ones, I guess, to a point, I don't want to really say outside the norm, but like I had one detective that their goal, like they said, I went to the police academy to work child crimes. I knew I had to do time on the street to make it to detectives, but this has been like my life goal. I don't want to go anywhere. Like, I plan on retiring here. I plan on working kids crimes until someone makes me leave, So, and obviously that person excelled above any other detective because of their passion doing it and whatever.
Right.
So do you make it a mandatory, right? Do you make someone leave that obviously has that passion? And certainly I've seen the same thing with crime scene. I know some CSIs that they have no desire to do anything else because they love doing that, right? So I don't know. Mandatory or evaluation, what,
emotional wellness, it's not a one size fits all thing, I think
I agree.
For us as supervisors, we have to learn to be perceptive and know our people well enough to know when they are struggling with something or with what particular things trigger for them, and just kind of move away from the old school mentality. I've been in forensics now for almost 20 years. I'm creeping up on it. But, when I started in forensics, it was very much, it's law enforcement, so it's very much like, suck it up, buttercup, this is what we do kind of thing.
You're weak. Just get on with it.
Your feelings down. And to be perfectly honest, I'm that kind of person anyways. I'm totally like a put your big girl pants on and deal with it kind of person. But it's not fair. If it doesn't bother me, it doesn't mean that it doesn't bother somebody else. So we just have to be perceptive about it. I don't necessarily know, if it's fabulous to force people out, but I love that they have the option to rotate in and out regularly without it being a negative thing, So for us, some of the agencies that we worked for, it is a negative thing. If you want to move to a different unit or move to a different forensic discipline, it's not, it's not taken like it is for the officers. I mean, officers move around their whole career. That's why a lot of them, I think, stay at agencies for so long, because they can work in all these different departments. And so they move around, they learn new skills, they stay engaged, they eliminate burnout. But us in forensics, we don't always have a lot of places we can go. So if there's anywhere else in your department where you could move for a little while to get refreshed and then come back to forensics, you at least would keep all that money and training and skills and knowledge inside the department. So I don't know about forcing people out, but I do think we do have a responsibility to be perceptive for our people.
Well, I know that one thing that we also have done in relation to our crimes against children, and I think would be beneficial in many different areas, is so if you work the crimes against children, there is not the EAP stuff, but there is a psychologist. They come in every 6 months.
Yes.
And it's not, the leadership has nothing to do with it. It's just every 6 months you go see this person, and you talk to them, and it's separate. Again, it's not the EAP stuff. It's just something totally designed for that. And I really, even though we've started talking about mental wellness and such in a little bit more in police work and a little bit more, and I really think that on the CSI and homicide level and things, it's nearly perceived as y'all see this every day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it's just normal, right?
Instead of thinking it of, oh my God, y'all see this every day, it's just, oh, it's just part of your job, right? You're used to this, right?
Yeah.
And I guess sadly to a point, yeah. I mean, yes,
but that mentality and that mindset isn't going to get you very far. You're expecting someone to enter this field and see that stuff and be around that stuff every single day for 30 years until they retire. Like, there's no one that's going to be able to come of that and be able to have stability.
Right. And I agree. I mean, if things are not put in place, you're going to see effects from it at bare minimum.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you're going to see changes in behavior and just, and we've seen it. I mean, sleep patterns and everything else. I mean, one thing I seem to have found common, and I've in the past couple of years have headed into an admin role, so I'm not on call like I used to be. But I can tell you when I was on call, and it seems to be a common theme, y'all see what y'all have experienced. I used to wake up at 2:00 for no apparent reason, because that's just when calls normally came in. My phone wasn't ringing.
Oh, yeah.
If
On-call's incredibly stressful. I don't even think people don't realize it until they're not on call anymore, how much stress there was. I mean, I remember when I first transitioned from crime scene to like Layton's and I got rid of my phone, I couldn't believe how much just kind of like regular anxiety I had just carrying the phone around, because it was just like a regular thing.
Right, you're hypersensitive. I mean,
yes, you're
or instant anxiety when you hear it ring, like automatic.
But what about when you had a good night's sleep and you wake up at 7 a.m. and you immediately jump up like, oh my God, I didn't hear the phone. Right, I had to have missed it.
Oh okay. Yes,
that happens all the time.
Now, I mean, I'm back on call now, and I, even in my own home, on the weekend, I'll be like, where's my phone? Where's my phone? Like looking around to make sure that I have
be attached to you.
Here. Yeah, so.
It affects a lot, and this is a completely different topic, but it's actually kind of sad. Like, I don't know if your experience is the same, but we wouldn't get compensated for being on call. The only way you get compensated is if you actually get called out.
Right, yeah, no, we're the same.
So, and there's some agencies that actually do give you like something in your paycheck for being on call for X amount of hours a week. And I think that's great because it affects you so much, like you said.
It's put in place that, legally and otherwise, yes, there's supposed to be some type of compensation when you have restricted employees' ability to do things. But I find it more common than not that no, you're not compensated in any way unless that phone rings and from the time you start rolling.
Yeah.
I've heard even some places that it's not until you get there, and so that's crazy.
Yeah. As far as like other opportunities, for like formal debriefings, we've seen a lot of like resistance toward it. Because it has such a negative connotation, people are afraid to open up during those meetings because what if it affects their employment and blah, blah, blah. But I just don't think we do it enough. It took years for me to have an actual formal debriefing, and that was after Pulse in Orlando, the mass shooting. And that was it. So in order for those to be effective, people try it once and they're like, oh, that didn't work. No one opened up. Well, yeah, like, I don't know if you've ever gone to therapy, but the first few sessions is just you getting to know the therapist. You don't really gain any traction until you do it, like 3 to 5 sessions, So there's a ton of opportunity for us to have more debriefings. And it's not just the mass shootings that are going to affect people mentally and emotionally. Maybe baby deaths affect certain people. Maybe sexual assaults affect certain people because they have, a past.
I don't know if there's one versus the other, and the only reason I say that is because I've seen so many times that when we both go to the scene, all 3 of us go to the same scene, and it has no effect on me. It has no effect on Erin, but for some reason, that particular scene affected you, right?
Yes.
All 3 of us head to another scene, right? We go to 10 other scenes. None of us are bothered by it. We go to the next scene. That one bothers me, right?
Yep.
It's just something individual about that connects, and I think that also leads to the problem of reaching out and talking, because you're like, well, why aren't they affected, right?
Yeah.
It didn't bother them any. Okay, why is it bothering me so much?
Yes.
I think we're starting to move past
and
that.
And they kind of like brush it up under the rug, like they're just making a big deal out of it for no reason. And it's like, no, they're actually affected by it, and we need to address it.
I will say they started doing, like you said, for us, they're requiring us to do a mental health assessment. We're just doing it yearly, but all the forensic professionals in our agency have to go to that once a year. And I just did mine last month. And I will say, like, one of the really nice things about it is if you are struggling with stuff, not only, do you have the opportunity to talk about it, but they provide you in that private, it's required, so nobody can not attend it. It's part of our employment, but they expose you to so many resources in that. So they're making people attend, but then if you're having problems with, suicidal thoughts or alcohol or abuse or anything, even if you just want to find a different therapist or whatever, they connect you with all these resources through the whole entire process. So instead of like you having to walk down to the HR office and get an EAP pamphlet and call EAP, this forced session gives you just easy access to all of those resources if you need them. So I did think that was nice. Not only did they go through, your whole life with you and see if there were any points you were struggling on, but they also gave you easy access to resources where you didn't have to, go find resources from, where someone could see you picking up the pamphlet or something like that. So,
right. There's still that negative. And again, I think it's gotten better. I really do. I think we're certainly talking about a lot more. For whatever reasons we've gotten to this point. I'm glad it's heading to that point. But there's still the negative side of, I think the biggest thing right now is when you see someone affected is the negative connotation of, are they okay? Can I trust them to do their job?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they don't want to lose their job, so they're going to act like they're fine.
Right. Well, so y'all focused on a couple of things, and obviously we've touched on some, but I definitely wanted to explore the gap science that both of y'all co-founded and created. So how long has this been around? Y'all just started this? What's When did all this come about?
So we did explain that we were both supervisors at the same time. We were having struggles. We had taken training courses to be a supervisor, but they weren't really tailored to forensics. And we're like, we need to do something about this. And that's when we created our 40-hour forensic supervision course. We had our first training course, gosh, Erin, was it November of 2018?
2019, yeah, 2019.
2019, yeah. And we really loved it, really enjoyed it. And it kind of opened our eyes like, wow, all of these other people in these other agencies are having the same struggles that we're having, and there's nowhere for them to go. So it kind of morphed into something more than we were planning. And we, at that point, were like, let's make an FTO course. That is something that is totally needed in the forensic science community. We need something tailored to the forensic units. So that's how we created that course, and it kind of just went off from there.
So you started November of 2019, and then y'all were ready to get started in 2020. Nothing happened there to slow y'all's progress down whatsoever.
Not at all.
Y'all were able to just expand and travel and do whatever you wanted, right?
No, it was pretty funny because we had that first course, and I think we had maybe 25 students in that first course, all supervisors from all over the place. And then from that course, I think we booked like 6 or 7 more people booked their own course from that course. And then they all got canceled because of COVID.
Right.
But we, all of the stuff that we have been putting out are just really a lot of lessons that we had to learn the hard way. And we're just kind of sharing that knowledge with others, like the forensic supervision course. We cover a whole bunch of soft skills, stuff like you talked about already, like DISC, communication, critical conversations, ethics, all that stuff. But then we also cover the hard skills too, like how to conduct an audit, how to keep stats, how to manage a budget, like all of those things that they don't teach us how to do when we start in a unit. So like Ashley said, we started with supervision, and then we realized that a lot of people were lacking training programs, or, they were made to be trainers and they didn't really know how to train people. So that was how the FTO course was born. And then we've broken a lot of those courses, some of the most popular topics, into different webinars, courtesy of COVID.
Yeah. So that forced you into an area you weren't ready for yet, I guess.
No, but we figured it out.
Right?
Yep. So courtesy of COVID, we made a lot of things digital so people could access them, online from the comfort of their own home and agency, and not have to actually travel to the classes. So, but right now we have both classes going. We have in-person stuff and webinars going for anybody that's interested in the training.
Yeah, so we, for those that are watching, we of course are on YouTube, Facebook, and so I have the gapscience.com website pulled up, and if you're listening, you can go to gapscience.com and just sort of scrolling through here. We have a couple things as far as your webinars and attending, and one thing that especially as an administrator that's listening to this and wants to host a class. So what does that entail as far as contacting y'all, and like y'all have a minimum of people that y'all want to talk to, or what are y'all looking for in hosting classes?
So it really depends on the area we're traveling to. So Erin's based out of Florida and I'm based out of South Carolina. So if you're on the southeastern side of the United States, travel costs for us are much lower. So the cost of your course might be lower as well. We try to have shoot for at least a minimum of 10 attendees. And that's just so we can maintain a lot of the travel costs for flights or rental cars or whatever. Currently, we're pretty booked for 2021. We, Erin, I would say we probably are just accepting applications for 2022. Yeah. So you just send us an email. We'll work out, the pricing details, accommodations, if you want to suggest a hotel for attendees to go to. The training room, if you do have a training room, we need it to be able to have a projector screen and hook up to the internet, just the common stuff.
So
but we love traveling, so definitely, reach out to us and we will work out something.
So obviously, y'all certainly put on courses in Hawaii or in any tropical locations and anything like that.
By all means.
Yeah.
Yes.
By all means in
Yeah.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if Ashley mentioned this, but any of our host agencies, we do offer them one free spot for every 10 paid tuitions. So, and we will do that up to 30 students. If we have 30 paying students, then an agency can get 3 spots for free. So this is a great way for them to get free training at their own agencies as well.
So now y'all talked as far as, and looking at the website, talking about the accreditation process and such. So
Yes.
I guess talking a little bit about that, I know that labs are facing those type of things as far as accreditation. Which accreditations, I guess, are y'all speaking of in reference to that?
Well, you guys already have some state mandated stuff
Yes.
in Texas.
Yes, we do in Texas.
Yes. So we've brought on Meredith Tice, Dr. Tice.
Yes.
She's at the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. She is their quality manager, and she's fabulous. They have a pretty big department for forensics. They have around 65 professionals between crime scene and digital forensics and latents and all of that. And she was brought in basically to bring them from nothing to accreditation to all the units accredited. And she did that in about a year and a half. So she's an incredible resource. So we brought her in to teach our accreditation series. And we also have another instructor, Elise Bekempsis. She's been a forensic technical writer for the last 15 years. So she teaches our writing SOPs and all of the documentation that goes along with accreditation. Meredith's agency is accredited through ANAB, and so she does talk in her course about both accreditation options, but she's very familiar with the ANAB process. So, but that course will walk you through basically start to finish of, how to get started, everything that you need to get in line to get yourself accredited. It's really fabulous. She's very detailed, and we actually just extended the course by 1 more hour, so she would have a little more time to get some more content in there for everybody, because we got such great feedback from the last webinar that she did. So if anybody is trying to start that process, or they're in the middle of that process, they're not sure what they need to do next, that's a great course. I think for any of us that are walking through that process or have walked through that process, it's very, very overwhelming and kind of a little scary, and also very expensive. So you want to make sure you get it right. And it's nice to have that kind of guidance while you're walking through the steps.
Yeah, and that's kind of the direction forensics is heading, right? There's already some states that are requiring, if you're going to practice and provide forensic services, you have to be accredited. That's kind of the direction we're heading as a nation. So it's something to think about, even if it's not on your radar, it's not something your agency is pressuring you to do. I would start trying to get prepared for it now.
No, I agree. I think it's something coming, and so certainly if anyone out there needs help with their accreditation, if you're looking to enhance your supervision knowledge, create an FTO program, Ashley and Erin love to talk to y'all about that. We've talked about many topics that crime scene and investigators and just in general that we're facing. And I appreciate Ashley and Erin's knowledge and experience and just all that they offer. Certainly visit them at their website, gapscience.com. Reach out to them. They're great to talk to, have great information to share. As always, we like to thank Planet Forward for sponsoring our show, and for Lone Star Radio. With either one of those, this would not be possible. So thanks to our sponsors. And again, if you would like to see a topic on the show, if you'd like to talk about something on the show, reach out to me, Dan@crimescenetoday.com, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye. Thank you.